Okay.
Yay!
Yay!
Thank you, Arthur. Sorry about that. We're having audio issues every single stream, apparently. So, hi everyone.
Hello.
Welcome to this 2.20 release live stream. I'm Julien, here with Simon.
Yeah.
So, let's jump into it. And we are back with the mic. So yeah, I was saying we'll go through the release cycle and different versions. Then Simon will talk to you about the new materials that we introduced in 2.20. So the old materials in 2.19 and below were moved to legacy, so they still work, but we made new materials, the default, following requests from artists, so hopefully you'll find these good. Then we'll quickly go through some new simulation features and changes on the simulation and compile side. Then new editor features, and finally we'll do a live demo, mostly Simon, that will show you the different material stuff. So the release cycle, the previous long-term support was 2.15. It's been 2 years, something like that maybe now. So with the release of 2.20, which is the new long-term support version, it's the end of life of 2.15. The previous version 2.19 will be stopped at 2.19.7, which has been released a few weeks ago, so we won't do any new 2.19s. 2.20, so the version going out today is a new long-term support that will be like 2.15. We're probably going to support it for the next 2 years until the next long-term support version. And the next version, 2.21, will be pretty much like every year, early January. So Simon.
So yeah, let me talk to you about the new materials. Previously the experimental materials that are now going to the default to be the default materials, which shouldn't change much. It's mostly internal reorganization and refactor of the old materials, but some features change here and there. I will, after this presentation, make a demo of the new animated mask material, which is a brand new material type available for billboards, meshes, ribbons. And that should be able was a very anticipated material for artists. And then there are about the new features that were changed with the new experimental materials and the new default materials. The basic UV transforms are now available for all materials. These look these look familiar, it was because these were available for the ribbon renderers, Rotate UV, Flip U, and Flip V, which should make it easier for all type of renderers to change the flip or rotate the UVs without having to touch the transform UV UV rotate, which is kind of hard to use or a bit expensive. There is also a new fastlit render feature, which is a basic Lambertian ERDF that should speed up the lighting process for particles that you don't need to that you don't need roughness or specular, for example. And there is a new tint render feature on distortion materials, that you can see on the bottom image, which allow you to add color to the distortion billboards, for example, and color textures. So that should add some possibilities to the distortion materials. Only the basic UV transform are implemented in the plugins. The fastlit and tint are still work in progress. So is the animated mask material. So yeah, that's all about default materials for now.
Thanks. So on the simulation side, the major new feature is what we call micro updates. So this was actually an old V1 feature that we did not port to V2, but with the new simulation-oriented features like the grids that we introduced in 2.19, it becomes very useful to have this again. So basically micro updates allow you to say that a given layer should tick at a specific frame rate. And so if you have a frame that lasts longer than that, it will do multiple simulation runs inside the same frame. So this is useful for simulations that are sensitive to the time delta. For example, the rope simulations or anything that iterates to solve constraints, you want the DT to be small. So when you have frame rate spikes, if you don't have that, it tends to make the simulations explode. So to do this, it's this screenshot here. When you select a layer, if you roll out the simulation hints category and you check micro updates, you will have those settings here. So you have a target FPS, so here it's set at 60 FPS. So the popcorn runtime will try to match at least 60 FPS. And here, just below, you have a max number of iterations per frame to avoid having the number of simulation steps exploding. So it can be lower than 60 FPS if you have a really, really long frame. But yeah, anyway, these settings allow you to fine tweak how the runtime will subdivide the updates. We also added a new atlas sampler. So before you could use atlases when sampling textures, but you could not directly sample an atlas. So if you wanted to change the size of your billboards, for example, based on the atlas style that they were using, you had no way to do that. So now you can use the atlas sampler to grab for a specific texture ID in your atlas the actual 2D size of the atlas style. If you are using trimming, which is kind of a hidden feature in the asset baker, there is no interface in the editor to generate trimming data, but the baker can generate trimming data and will save it inside the PKAT files, which are the atlas files. So if you have trimming, the atlas sampler can also give you the coordinates of each vertex of the trimmed atlas tile. Anyway, on the density sampling side, we added a new algorithm for density sampling, which is wavelet sampling. So I won't go into the details of how it's different from the previous one, but the main advantage is that it's roughly twice faster than using the old algorithm. So in the density sampling, there is sample density and remap density. A sample density is just generating a random point, a random UV, based on the intensity of the texture. So it will generate more points where the pixels are brighter. And remap density, you give an UV or a random value that you picked yourself, and the remap density will move those UV values towards the brighter areas. So it's more of a corner case usage, and the new wavelet data structure accelerates the remap density, so not the most used one. The sample density is still an order of magnitude faster than both the old algorithm or the wavelet algorithm. Anyway, the remap densities were pretty expensive, so this addresses that. And the other nice thing is that you can tweak the quality level of the wavelet lookup. So here on those screenshots it might be a bit harder to see on the stream, I don't know, but on the left here it's the old algorithm. On the middle it's the wavelet at high quality, like maybe 0.9 out of 1, something like that. And on the right, it's a low quality, like 0.1 or 0.2, and you can kind of see some little blocky artifacts. But for example, on the texture below, it's pretty hard to see, yet it's much faster and also takes up less space. So in conjunction with that, we also added a new image format. So we weren't really keen on adding yet another format, like a popcorn specific image format. But the thing is that with all the density sampling thing, we had nowhere to store these lookups at runtime. So unlike the meshes where we have the PKMM baked mesh format where we can store the sampling lookups and all that for the images, we did not have that, which meant that in your engine, whenever you loaded an effect that was doing density sampling, when the effect was loaded, it had to recompute from scratch all the density lookups, and this was producing frame rate spikes. So now in the PKIM image format, you can use that to store the pre-computed density lookups, which makes the loading super fast. So on the SDK side, if you have your own image format, you can also use your own format to serialize that. So yeah, this on the bottom is the new density profiles that you can set up in the image viewer. So when you open you double click on an image in the content browser, it's the image viewer, and you have on the bake settings panel, you have now density profiles, and you can add a bunch of density profiles where you set them up. Like this one is using the wavelet algorithm in float 16 packing, and you have the quality here. So this is just a test, an internal test we did where we added a whole bunch of profiles for different settings just to test the thing out. And then in your node graph, when you specify the image, you have a new field where you can type the density profile. Right now it's not auto-filled based on what's inside the texture. This is some UI improvements we need to do afterwards, so you can see a drop down or whatever. But right now you would have to type like, oh, I want to sample the wavelet low F16 profile, for example, and it will use that to sample it. Anyway, and yeah, we also did a bunch of graph optimizer improvements. I won't go into detail on that. They're all listed in the 2.20 changelog. Yeah. And we also did a bunch of template changes, improvements. So we added a bunch of local to view, view to world, world to view, etc. Helpers for orientation types. You did not have orientation, you only had like world direction to local or world position to local, but now you have the world orientation to local, where you can take a orientation wire and it will transform it properly. On the timer node as well, we added an initial value and a value when it's reset. Before you had no way to do that with the timer node, and we realized it was a bit limiting for some uses. So yeah, we have those two new things. Also on those three nodes, projection, containment, and limit distance, you could specify a shape to project on, shape to contain around, and shape to limit the distance of the particle to. But you had no way to specify custom shape transforms that you could change in the graph. So it was, again, a bit limiting. So now we expose that. You can control the shape transforms through those pins. And last thing, for those grid helpers that allow you to convert grid coordinates or grid UVs to ID, we added wrapping mode in the properties, so that you can say if it needs to clamp the UV or wrap it, or do no checks, which will be faster. Yep, so now it's time for the demo. I'll let Simon take over.
For this demo, I'll first make a quick new billboard using the new animated mask material. Up. Here I just have to select animated mask. Up. And, so now there is a new animated mask render feature which allow you to To specify masks, so yeah, first I'll just set up quickly flame diffuse. Up. And now you can, on top of that, affect its alpha values with masks. So, for example, if I take a simple noise, you can see that it is layered on top of the diffuse texture. I can alter its scale to make it, for example, to make it repeat, or to scale the UVs. And also I can add a rotation value to make it rotate, and translation values. So here, if I do it up, I can now also have distortion masks, which are UV distortion masks that work on the alpha masks. The first distortion mask will work mostly on the first alpha mask, and 10 times less on the second one. And the second distortion mask will work 10 times on this the second alpha mask, and in a lesser way on the first one. This allows to mix the distortions between the two masks and add a randomness to the noise. So now if I just add a displace blur, this one is too blurry, I can just reduce the UVs and add an up scrolling, and this should begin to look like something that could be a flame, right? Up. If I add also a new thing on the diffuse ramps, oh yeah, it's not. Okay.
Misclicked on stream end.
Yeah. Qu'est-ce qu'on a manqué du coup? What did we?
Probably just the ramp.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So.
It's coming back.
Ça s'est arrêté quand?
They will.
Okay. So now you can set a v-axis on the ramps. So the ramp, you can store multiple ramps on the same texture. For this, I can just set it to rainbow and up. And this is some basic, basically what you can do really fast with those masks. For more advanced,
can increase the size maybe, so
yeah,
you
sure.
won't have the near plane cut.
You can also add more distortion, of course, and you can also change the cursor of the animation. By default, it is set to the self age, but you can set it here. Here I have already a bit which take the self.age and makes a noise out of it. So here I can just plug it to the distortion noise. If I deactivate this one,
is distortion 2 that you? Oh,
yeah, distortion 2, and if I like add a distortion, you should see that now it's not only like scrolls on the up more values. You can see that now it not only scrolls from to the upper axis, but it alternates because the cursor can be set, right? So yeah, that's and you can also rotate, and all this depends on the cursor. So it's quite powerful. You can do fun stuff. Here I have an example of a really basic God ray example that only uses two alpha masks, two shine alpha masks on top of each other to make a basic but good-looking God ray effect. And there is one effect that was provided by Chloe, one of our artists, that uses a lot these animated masks. So here, this is a waterfall, and all the 2D aspects is done with animated masks. So here the shine, for example, is done with distortion, and on the basic on the shine texture, it's added. There is a distortion added on top of it to add an effect of water movement, right? And the waterfall itself is made with scrolling noise, two scrolling noises on top of each other. So you can do quite a lot with this new material, and quite easily. Before you had to work with distortion materials, and some things were just not possible without custom shaders. And now it should be a pretty powerful new material to work with. So yeah, it's mainly all I had to say. Oh yeah, a quick thing on the upgrade side of it, or not on the feature,
Project features.
Project features, right? Now you have a new feature for legacy materials. By default, when you upgrade your project, it should be set to on, which means that you still have the legacy materials available to choose when you create a new renderer. But you can disable the legacy materials, and you can disable the new materials if you need to. When creating a new renderer materials, to have the legacy materials on by default. So yeah, that's it for the new default materials and the animated masks material. I'll now let Julien talk about the new features.
So yeah, I'm just going to show you the density things. Where did I put that? Oh yeah, it's here. Oh, I can show you the Atlas sampling as well. Yeah, let's do that. So those are from our unit test effects. So it's not really a pretty effect, but it just shows the feature. So each of these squares is a layer, and if I take like this one, so it takes the effect age, samples the atlas based on the ID computed from the effect age, and uses that to highlight to show the billboard in the atlas, and change the billboard size based on the size and location based on the coordinates of the atlas. And if I open the other one, this one shows the trimming data. Right. So it displays the geometry of the trimmed data. I'll show you the texture, it will be clearer. So yeah, it's this texture. This texture and this atlas. So you can see it maps one of these squares maps this layout and displays these convex hulls right there. Yep. So it's a bit dirty to display that. Anyway, won't go into it. And last thing, for the density lookups. So again, it's from our unit test effects. So this one is a bit big. Yeah. So this is what I showed in the PowerPoint beforehand, and so the layout of the layers here match the layout of the rectangles in the viewport. So if I look at those two, or let's say those three in the first row, lattice, so this is the old algorithm, wavelet and wavelet low, and you can see here that in the density profile, in the properties of the image node, that's the new thing I was talking about during the presentation. Density profile, here it references wavelet low, and when I open this image, down here, so that's the big settings, down here in this density profile, I have wavelet low, and here is the wavelet quality. And if I bring this down very, very low, I don't think it hot reloads right now. It's rebaking. Yeah. Okay. This works extremely well. Okay, I need to restart the effect. For some reason, it's stalled. Okay, disregard that. That's how you're supposed to set it. Yeah, we'll fix it in patch 1. Anyway. So, if there are any questions? When will this new version support iClone 8? We get this question a lot. Actually, you have to ask Realusion directly. They made the iClone plugin, and it's their decision to upgrade or not. We have no hands in this. It's entirely up to them. So, yeah, we'd like them to upgrade to version 2, but we can't. We have no way to tell you when they'll do that, if they'll do that.
Oh. Yeah. Yeah, I think there is one question more. Any visual example? I think we showcased it in the demo.
Yeah, not enough tutorials. Indeed, we have some starter tutorials in the PopcornFX channel, but they were captured in an early version of version 2, so the UI has changed a bit. We should probably recapture these. Otherwise, I made a bunch of tutorials on my channel. I always want to make more, but no time for it. Yeah, that's definitely something we should address. Yeah, apologies for the stream issues. Okay, well, if there are no other questions, we'll stop here. Thanks for joining, and if you have questions afterwards, you can ask them on the Discord server, and we'll be happy to answer them. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Stream end for real this time.
Ah oui,
En fait, pas sur les-
Sonnery,
pas
c'est
sur les autres.
Mais lui avant, il était 7 sur un podcast justement. Parce qu'on utilisait notre podcast pour éviter d'entendre les bruits de clavier, tout ça.
Ah.
Et là, donc zéro. Mais je sais peut-être qu'il faut que ce soit ouvert. Ah non. D'accord. Ok. Bon, lui,
Même si on le débranche, qu'on le rebranche.
ouais. Et puis il fonctionnait, je sais pas. Peut-être qu'il fallait lancer un visa podcast à un moment. Ok. Je check. Je le remets là-dessus.
Encore un grand moment de professionnalisme de streamer. Hein.
Ça me fait tous les 4 mois.
Qui vont join juste pour the lols.
Et,
Alors, qu'est-ce qu'ils
au
vont
début de
faire
stream,
encore cette
il y
fois
avait 30 personnes hein, sur le stream.
30 personnes.
Ouais, à la fin, il y en avait 23. Franchement,
Cool.
je savais plus ce que j'ai vu. Je crois pas que toute la boîte est en train de regarder. Il y avait Mickaël dans le chat.
Bon, ça va, le début.
Il y a un moment où c'était confortable. Hein
On en pense quoi